Welcome back to Finding Your 100% with Mike Biggs, author. Uh, a lot has happened since the last podcast, and all positive. In our class, we do a thing which is part of our Achieving Well Balanced Being curriculum, an exercise called third party validation, affirmation. And we have each student sit in a chair, and every student, including myself and Mr. Gibson, my classroom co-worker, we have to sit in that chair and people will say things about each individual. Everyone rotates through. And on this particular day that we were doing it, the superintendent and principal happened to have been in the building. And they observed this free-flowing, unscripted affirmation process that each student went through. It impacted the superintendent so much that he did the exercise with one of his retiring administrators. We're having an exciting time at John Jay Center at Learn to Earn program. We're at 34 graduates right now. We had 35 last year. We're on track to have over 35 this year. But what's so beautiful about it is that some of our students who are graduating actually came to us at the beginning of the school year in August of 2022 with 0 credits, have never achieved any success academically in school. And by the curriculum and what we do in the classroom, this person several of them ended up graduating this year and came to us with 0 credits. How does this happen? Well, on our next podcast, I'm going to have Josh Gibson, who's an instructor in our classroom, be a part of my podcast so we can explain that process. But in essence, it is the methodology that we use that allows a student to begin to see success in their life and believe that it will be achieved. So today I want to talk about the science of hope. Carol Graham recently published an article called The New Science of Hope. But I want to go back that this is not so new because in 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter and the 13th verse, Paul writes, 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. But I want to talk about faith next broadcast. But how do you get to faith is through hope. What is hope? Well, hope is not simply believing things will get better. The better word for describing a think it will get better attitude is optimism. Hope is an active participating view that things will get better because I have the self-efficacy or the internal ability to cooperate in making my life become better. And in this article, Carol Graham discussed how they're showing in research that people who have a strong sense of hopefulness, believing that they have the self-efficacy to affect change in their lives, endure better in life and succeed more than those who have a hopeless framework. And that's where we are in society right now. We're inundated on social media and on the networks with nothing but bad news and how divided we are and how bad things are. And we never stop to look around and see how can we make things better where we are. I operate out of Portland, Indiana. I operate in a school that we serve basically 50 people in our program. We split our schedule of morning classes, one group, afternoon class, another group. And in Jay County, I can numerically and statistically prove that my part of what I do at John Jay Learn to Earn program is making a difference. And no matter how bad the dropout rate may be in other places, we know that our program is impacting the dropout rate. We know it's impacting juvenile crime. We know that lives are getting better. We know that economically our students are averaging $15.25 an hour of income. We know that students have gone on to careers from last year and still working on degrees, certification, journeyman within the trade works. We're excited about the fact that we know that we can make things better. And when we start with a kid, we start with hope, believing that if we give them the tools that we're using, that they will learn how to use them, and that light bulb moment will happen, and they will figure out what's in it for them. So hope is a very strong concept which we typically refer to as self-efficacy in the achieving a well-balanced being life, and in my book, Finding Your 100%. So I know on a personal level and historically, being an African American, hope and faith and love have been something that our family had lived off for centuries. No matter how grim, how dark, how bad things were, we were always transmitted a sense of hope based on our self-efficacy, that if we worked hard, stayed focused, it did not sabotage our life with um, habits that would be self-destructive, that we could achieve. So in one of the units that we went over on Friday was about getting to the why. Why do we want to have hope? Why do we believe that things can be better? In my book, Finding Your 100%, I take on the concept that people say, oh, you can be whatever you want to be. I don't believe that. I believe you can be whatever you want to be within your skill set, within your gifts, within your talents. I've said many times on this podcast, these hands were not made for neurosurgery. It wasn't made for being a bomb demolition specialist in the military. I've never had those kind of steady hands. So I've ruled those kind of jobs and careers out of my life. And by not focusing on things I knew I didn't have the aptitude, the skills, the gifts to do, I was able to narrow the focus on what I could do with the gifts and talents I had been given. Now, within that scope of knowing what my gifts, talents, and abilities are, yes, I can do anything that I set out to achieve within the scope of my skills, my gifts, and my talents. Not only me, but you also. So narrow down the things that you know that you're not called to do, you're not comfortable doing, may not have the aptitude or the desire to develop that skill, and focus on the things that you know you can do extremely well. And there will be more than one or two things in your life that you can do extremely well. But when you narrow your list down, it keeps you from being scattered all over the universe and concepts and ideas that you're wasting your energy on. Focus and narrow down the things that you're gifted and talented in. Now, let me just tell you something. That doesn't mean that when you start out in life or if you're in middle age, that you're going to continue to do that same job within the scope of the gifts and talents that you have. But let me just make it clear. For example, my skill set is best operated with other people. I'm a people person. I would not do well working in a lab, even though I've done laboratory work in the military. I was quite good at it. But if I had to do laboratory work 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, I would not be the best person for that job. So even though I love being with people, I've been in the military. I have worked in education. I have worked in all aspects of social services. I've done consulting work. Excuse me. If you look at a resume, that will look like I've had multiple jobs. May have been multiple jobs, but they were in the same career path that I set out to be successful in, working with people. So do not get caught up in trying to find such a specific lane to be in, as opposed to the broad range of opportunities within an area of life that you enjoy. Because working by yourself, we're talking librarians, we're talking welders, we're talking computer programmers, we're talking editors. There's so many things that you can do that doesn't require you to work so much with other people or the public. And vice versa, if you like working with the public, customer service, sales jobs, teaching, nursing, there's so many career fields. So just isolate where you feel the most comfortable. Find a job within that comfort zone of careers and work with your gifts and talents, and it will take you to the other end. And when you do that, what we found out, and this is how we get to these graduates in our program, Josh and I know that there's nothing we can do or say that will make sure that a student will be successful until they figure out they want to be successful. We don't work off of a mandated type alternative school program. where you're mandated to do so much a day. You're mandated to do it at such and such time. You have 3 hours a day and you set the pace, but here are the goals you need to hit if you say that you're going to graduate. And we know at what point a student buys into it. You see, in achieving a well-balanced being, we talk about motivation, and there's two types, restrictive and constructive. Restrictive sounds like this. Oh man, I have to do this to graduate. Or if I don't do these classes, they're gonna put me out. So I don't have any choice, but I gotta do it or else. Restrictive and coercive motivations lead people to push back. I don't know about you, but I don't like being told I have to do something. I'm not comfortable with those kind of terms. But anytime that I've achieved anything in my life within my skill set, within my gifted set, and got the energy to accomplish the goals that I set, it was because I went from a have to attitude to a want to attitude. And when you say in your mouth and in your heart, I want to achieve this goal, there's nothing going to stop you within your gifted set. Because that energy comes in, and whatever you have to do, you do it. When I initially went to college in 1976, I felt like I had to. My father had died. My mom begged me not to go in the military. Vietnam was over, but she just somehow believed I'm going to go off in the military, get killed in the war. So I felt like, well, the only thing I have left to do is go to college, because I did have a basketball scholarship to Clark. And so I went to Clark College, which is Clark Atlanta University now. Needless to say, I flunked out my first year because I had a had-to attitude and not a want-to attitude. Fast forward to August of 1986 from May of 1977, 10 years later, I'm back at Clark. I leave there with a 3.4 average when I transferred to Troy State, where I graduated with a 3.4 average. When college became a want to and not a have to, my whole academic life changed. This is how we make success, people, in finding our 100%. Get away from a have to comment about something you're doing that is necessary in your life to a want to. You never quit doing any habit you have in life if you feel like you have to do it because it'll make my wife happy. I have to do it because it will make my children happy. When you figure out, I want to do this because I want a happy spouse, I want happy children, I want financial security for my family, that gives you the energy and the perseverance to press forward. But whenever we have a want to attitude, a have to attitude, we will never push as strongly as we could when we say, I want to achieve this. I want this. So work on those words that we use, and just think about things that you say you're doing. My students come in all the time and say, I can't do algebra. And I used to fall in the track of saying, well, yeah, I know you might not ever see it again, but to graduate, you have to. I learned to change that when I understood how the brain operated. And I heard a person say once that, yeah, you may not never use algebra again, but the pathways, the neural pathways in your brain that you create when you learn something new will be there open in your mind, that when you face a problem that's complex and complicated, you have the capacity now in your brain to isolate situations, group them, and come up with the best possible solution. So I tell my kids, you need to want to take this algebra because it's going to stretch and grow your brain. Your dendrites, neural pathways in your brain will help you be able to face difficult and challenging situations as you go forward. That is the power of understanding the science of the brain. The Word of God is simple enough to hear it and understand it, but it's complex enough to be scrutinized, analyzed, and it will bring you back to the same place of understanding. So in the classroom, I don't use the Bible in the classroom. I'm in a public education. but I use it by the example that I set and the words that I say. And they know that I have an undying care and love for my students. I do, all students that come to my class. And those that are not giving 100% understand I'm never disappointed in the outcome. I'm disappointed in their commitment to the outcomes. And I get them to take ownership. If you don't want to graduate, just say it, check out the program. But this program only works when you have a want to attitude, that you want to graduate. And then you figured out what we nicknamed the WIFM, the what's in it for me. If it's a task you're doing and there's no WIFM for you, there's nothing in it for you, there's nothing that you have to do, don't do it. But there are certain things in life that we all have to do. We live in America, you got to pay your bills, you got to put gas in your tank. There's so many things that we have to do. It's a given. But only in America do we have a cross-board opportunity. In spite of every barrier and challenge that we face, if we want it enough, we can fight strongly enough within our gifted sets and our talents and achieve that level of success that we're capable of, that level of 100%. So hope, in recapping, is the belief that you have the self-efficacy, the power and the strength inside of you within your gifted set to make life better for you. And then when we understand that, we are actively using constructive motivation. You move to a want to. You're not in restricted motivation where you feel like, oh, I have to or else. And now you created the energy, the focus to move forward. I've said in my book, and I say it on this podcast over and over again, finding your 100% is not a destination. It is a process. It is a process of finding maximum use for your gifts, talents, and abilities at wherever you are in your life process. My 100% is totally different than when I was in the military. I set a goal in the military to be the fastest 2-miler in my 8-man team. I reached that goal. At 64 years old, that's a goal that's not realistic. I can go back to a team in the military that I operated on and feel like I could set the record on a 2-mile run. That ship has sailed. But now at 64, I've set the goal that I'm not going to fall and break my hip, that I'm going to stay flexible enough and mobile enough and conscious of my environment that as I age and the likelihood of a fall and a broken hip, I'm not going to make it easy to happen to me. That is a realistic goal for me at this stage as far as my physical health is concerned. In high school, it was dunking a basketball. That ship has sailed now too. So at every stage of life, you have to look at your gifts, talents, and abilities and set realistic goals. And for you young people out there, I'm telling you, this is a time to stretch your mind, body, and soul and achieve as much as you can so that when you get to be my age, you have no regrets and you've set your life to a point where you decide on if you're going to retire or not retire. I'm so excited about what I'm doing. I feel like Willie Nelson. He just had his 90th birthday. And back in the 70s, Paul McCartney from the Beatles asked him, had he thought about retiring because they had reached 65 or something like that. It may have been the 80s. And Willie said, retire from what? He does not see making music as a job. It's his passion. And me encouraging and inspiring you who are listening to me now, students in my classroom, corporate executives, military leaders, doing this is not work for me. It is my passion. It is my want to and not my have to. So I implore you, look at the podcast, reach out to me on Facebook. You have all my contact information on the YouTube channel. And let's get some training done and let me help you motivate your students, motivate your workforce to find their 100%. Please tune in. When you look at this podcast and you're finished, make sure you click follow, click share, and click like. This is Mike Biggs coming from Portland, Indiana, encouraging you to find your 100%. Peace out.